Hey everyone, I am Fernando Herrera, and I am actually one of the former ALPFA board members. ALPFA stands for the Association of Latino Professionals for America. I lived in Atlanta not too long ago and have since moved, but I actually am really excited to talk to all of you students about myself and share my story with the wonderful Latino Pipeline program. Before I get started, I actually want to introduce myself through a TikTok video that I created for all of you. So after this introduction, I'll make sure to introduce myself and start talking about my story. All right, so that was a short little video that I wanted to share with all of you. Like I mentioned, my name's Fernando. I actually grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, but even before then, my family is actually from Mexico. And so my family came to this country for better opportunities and for a better life. And so they picked us up from where we're from in Mexico and they moved us to California. And then shortly after, Salt Lake City, Utah. So that's where I actually grew up. It was really an interesting place to grow up. It's very different than Atlanta, Georgia. And throughout kind of me living there, I've learned a lot of different things. Today, I know most of you are in junior high. Some of you may be in elementary, but I kind of want to talk about who I am and how that shaped how I've grown up and where I'm at now as a working professional who has since graduated college and is now working for a medical device company. So, like I mentioned, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm actually what you call first generation. And first generation is just somebody who came from another country, another place. Their parents did not grow up here, but I am the first one to grow up here. So that is the simplest way for me to kind of describe that. So I grew up as a first generation Mexican American here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I learned a lot in school. I'm sure all of you are having a very different experience because you have to do this virtually instead of going into classrooms and meeting with all your friends and your teachers and having breaks and lunchtime and all that stuff. And now you have to do it from home, which I can't imagine how that feels like and looks like. But for myself, junior high, elementary and junior high was very exciting. I think that is when you start finding out who you are and who you want to be. And at that young age, I realized that I really, really enjoyed school. And I know that's not everybody. Not everybody goes into school saying that they like it or that they want to do the homework, but I did. And the reason why I did was because I saw how much value school and what I learned in my classes could teach me. And so I was one of those kids who really liked it. And I excelled. I really liked to do my homework, and I really liked to just learn all the different material. And I'm not gonna lie, it was not easy. There were some moments where I didn't want to do the work. Um, but when I realized what it looked like when you didn't do the work, I remembered that it all paid off. And so, like I mentioned, at a very young age, I liked schooling. So going into junior high, you get a very different experience. You're no longer taking those recess breaks. You actually have to focus on these different set of classes. You start maturing. Things start changing for you. And middle school, you can actually start being more involved, or less involved if you wanted to, honestly. But there's a lot of great opportunities for all of you in junior high and middle school to get involved, and to do a little bit more. So I know junior high was a bit of a culture shock for me. I think I focused a lot on figuring out who I was. In school, while that was a priority, I think figuring out who we are during that time is also big too. And so I focus on both of those things. Um, as I kind of progressed, and got a little bit older, as you head into ninth grade, I know that ninth grade is a very important year. And I thought it was an important year because I was so close to graduating. I was almost there, 3 to 4 more years left. But actually, it's a really critical year because that's when your grades start counting for those college applications as well. So by ninth grade, the grades that you start getting are super critical for your future. And nobody really talked to me about what that meant and how that impacted me later on. Um, because not only is it for your future outside of high school, but even for high school, those credits that you earn help you graduate. And so as a ninth grader, I definitely made sure to focus on on my schooling while also being very involved or trying to be involved. Um, it was a very interesting time. I'm sure all of you are are experiencing something very differently. But that is kind of like where for myself, I realized that school, while it's always mattered and it's always counted, and every grade matters because you build and you learn more and more. But ninth grade is where the credits that you get is what you need to graduate high school, but also the grades that you get will affect you in college too. So from ninth grade to 12th grade were those years where I really had to focus on my schooling, and I had to focus on my grades, and I had to learn a lot of different material. And as you kind of go through high school, you start kind of learning about these different classes, and higher level classes actually, because you start learning about AP classes and concurrent enrollment classes. So more of these classes that help you earn college credit while you're in high school. And that was very new to me. And like I mentioned, I was first generation. My parents didn't study here in the United States, and so they didn't quite understand what school looked like for me. Just like I'm sure all of you are like, my parents have no idea what it's like to be school today in year 2020 when coronavirus hit for all of us. And we have to do it from home. So that's a very different experience. And for myself, it was very important for me to make sure to get those really good grades, and to learn as much as I could, and also be involved in those AP and concurrent enrollment classes, because that really helped me prep for the future. And the future is something that I really want to talk to all of you about. The future for all of you, I hope, is to go to college, to get a higher education, to continue to learn and to grow, and to be this working professional, whatever that means to you. And there's so many different ways and different paths that you can take. But I really hope for all of you, you consider going to college as one of them. A few tips that I wish I knew when I was your age, possibly. was I wish people talk to me more about college and what that is and what that means to me, because I didn't have a lot of people talking to me about it. So I want to make sure that I talk to all of you. In college, I think is a very exciting place to be. I know it was for me. Um, College meant independence. It meant me growing up. It gave me the opportunity to travel, to live in a country that I've never lived before, which going later down the line, I'll talk about my experience in Spain. Um, but it was really awesome. I grew so much in college, and I got to pick who I wanted to be for my future. And so before we even get there, the ways to get to college are really defined by those early years in your high school and all throughout high school, to be honest, because the grades that you get, that GPA, is going to help you with that application and make it stronger. The ACT score or SAT score that you receive is also a factor. And then they'll ask you about what were you involved in? What, like, what clubs did you like doing? Were you part of a football? Were you part of the chess club? Were you a dancer? Who were you? And why do we want to accept you? That is really big. And that was something that I had to talk about when I was in high school going to college. And then also, when you think about your colleges, there are so many opportunities and so many different things that they'll ask for. Different colleges will ask you for different things. And so when you're looking at colleges that are maybe out of state, let's say you are in Georgia, you're in Atlanta right now, or maybe in one of the suburbs, and you're like, I want to study in New York. Applying for the colleges in New York is going to be similar, but also different in some ways. They're going to have very different requirements, but you want to make sure that you think about those things. I know all of you are like, I'm still super young, I'm worrying about other things, but I hope some of you also think about your future and where you want to go as well. So colleges will 100% ask you for that GPA. They'll ask you for an ACT and SAT score, which you take pretty much your junior year of high school, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to ask you what you were involved in. And then they're also going to ask you personal statements. And personal statements are stories that each of you have by the way that you grew up. You all have very unique stories, very unique perspectives, backgrounds, which is amazing and great. And so being able to share those stories is going to be super big for these colleges, because they're going to want to learn more about you, and they're going to want to know why they should have you attend their college. So as you kind of start thinking about that and thinking about how you grew up and who you are at this point, or who you want to be in the future, definitely make sure to think about those things for what you're going to write about potentially for your personal statement. And so sharing a little bit about me, I know I'm giving all of you a lot of advice, but a little bit about me. I grew up, like I mentioned, in Salt Lake City, Utah. My parents divorced when I was younger. So I was somebody who had to navigate parents who were not together. And so that was very unique. I know not everybody gets to experience that. Also being first generation, in my household, we spoke Spanish. That was our first language. That was my first language. So I had to speak Spanish at home with parents that were divorced from Utah, which all of you are like, where's Utah? From a different state, and growing up in a very different culture than all of you. And so when I was starting to think about what my story was, I wanted to talk about the impact that my parents made on my life when I was younger. And when I was younger, meaning that them bringing me to this country for more opportunities, them teaching me their culture and their language, that played a big role in who I am today, them teaching me about themselves and how they grew up. I definitely had challenges and obstacles growing up. It's not easy uh, growing up with divorced parents, having to navigate that relationship. And so, whenever I thought about who I was when I was younger, I know that my parents played a big role in my lives. I talked about my mom who worked 12-hour shifts all the time. My mom was a very hard worker and she wanted to make sure that her family was taken care of. And she was a single mother too. So she worked very hard for her children. And I always said that my mom, and even to this day, that my mom gave me my work ethic, that she taught me that working hard makes you stronger, but also teaches you a lot. And my dad, who is so incredibly talented artistically, he likes to draw and he actually plays the music, he's a musician. But also, my dad, who is very cerebral, who likes to study, who likes going to the libraries, who taught me how to play chess. My dad taught me the importance of getting an education because my dad saw the value in it. And he always told me that I should go to college, that I should get good grades, that I should continue to learn, because if there's something that people cannot take away from you, is what you learn. Um, what's in your head, nobody can take that from you. So I talked about that story. I talked about them. And I talked about myself too. I talked about the challenges that I faced and that my parents didn't have enough money to pay for me to go to college. That was something else that I shared with the committee, and a little bit of me that I'm sharing with all of you. So that was definitely a story that I told them and that I had to be willing to tell them for them to get to know who I was at that point in my life. And so I actually was very fortunate to get accepted to the colleges and universities that I applied for. I applied for the University of Utah, which is here in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I grew up, and they accepted me. And I was very excited and happy for that acceptance because that is where I saw myself. I wanted to stay here and I wanted to go there. But part of that acceptance also made me a little scared. And I know all of you know what being scared feels like. But for me, I was a little bit scared because I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. Because school is expensive. Once you go to college, you add a lot of zeros to what you pay for school, and you don't know how you're going to pay for that. Right? I had a high school job. I worked in retail and I worked as a server too in high school, but that definitely was not enough money to pay for my university classes going forward, and then me wanting to live on campus. So another part of when I applied to college in a university was thinking about scholarships. And scholarships is free money that people offer you to continue your education. So to go to college. And I learned about scholarships my sophomore year of high school. And I'm telling all of you right now that there are scholarships and there will always be scholarships to help you. And you can even start sooner than I did. But I learned about scholarships my sophomore year and I waited until my senior year to apply. I hope all of you do it sooner. I hope all of you, if there's anything you take away from this video, is you find out that there are a lot of scholarships that will help you go to college. But I found out about scholarships my sophomore year, but I didn't apply until my senior year. So when I got that acceptance, I was still a senior in high school. And I was starting to think about those scholarships because I knew that the scholarships would pay for uh, my schooling. And so I worked very hard to research what scholarships I wanted to apply for and the ones that I qualified for. Um, and so I actually found so many. There were so many scholarships that just wanted me to write a personal statement, and they'd ask for my information, my GPA, my ACT score, what I was involved in, etc. But they really wanted to know me in the personal statements. And so I had to dive deep into who I was, and share stories about myself that I didn't share with a lot of people, stories about my identity. Um, and my identity in very different ways because I'm not just one. I'm not described just as one word, just like all of you. There are so many words that describe me. And so I had to dig deep and continue to share those stories for people that I didn't know, which was scary too. But I had to make sure that I wrote those stories in a way that was best communicated to them and best understood. So that was a very daunting task for me. It was scary. But I promise you, I applied to, I kid you not, 40 plus scholarships. And in the beginning, it was very hard because I got rejected so many times. Um, and I was rejected scholarship after scholarship, and I was feeling so down because I was questioning myself like, why am I not getting these? What is wrong with me? Um, and I had to persevere and had to continue to apply for those scholarships because, like I mentioned, that was my ticket to getting my schooling paid for. So after multiple rejections, I finally got a few people that were interested in who I was, as a person, right, through the stories that I told them, and they reached out to me. And they were like, "Fernando, we want to talk to you about um, the scholarship that you applied for." And so I remember my very first scholarship, I had an interview for it. They wanted to talk to me one-on-one and ask me more about what I wrote. And I shared with them a little bit more, and they finally were like, "We want to give you money. We want to give you $1,000." And I felt so happy because while $1,000 may not seem like a lot, well, I'm sure for all of you it does because your parents are not giving you $1,000. Um, but for college, it's not a lot because college can cost $40,000. But for 1 year or maybe two. But I finally got my $1,000, and that was super exciting because it felt like I accomplished something and that I could get more. So I got that one scholarship, and I remember it to this day. It's called the Utah Sons of Pioneer Scholarship. And my second one, I remember in high school, I already thought about I wanted to go into business. So I pursued a high school business scholarship. And I wrote to them about me being a young entrepreneur. And by that, and let me explain what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is a word describing somebody who starts their own business. And so that's what an entrepreneur means. So me being a young entrepreneur, me writing about me being a young entrepreneur, I shared with them a story about when I was a little kid. I asked my dad to buy a bunch of those big box candies at Costco, and I sold them, and I told him that I wanted to sell them in my neighborhood for like $1 or $2. So I already at a young age was thinking about um, how I could make money by just being smarter. So if I bought a box of Snickers, 20 Snickers, for let's say $10, but I sold each Snicker for $2, I could get $40. Right, so it cost me $10 to buy that box, but I actually earned $40 if I sold all of them. So I earned $30 just by putting in the work. And so I kind of shared a story like that, and I shared that small piece of when I was younger, and then I just kind of expanded it as to why I want to continue in business. And I actually got that one too. So they loved my story. They invited me to a scholarship reception dinner, and they gave it to me. So that was another $1,000. So that was $2,000 that I had. And then this one was a really big one. There's something called full ride scholarships, and a full ride scholarship actually will pay for everything. So they will pay for your tuition, they will pay for your books, they will pay for you to live on campus. Full ride scholarships are amazing because you don't have to worry about having to pay for college. You just have to worry about getting in. And so I learned about these through my research of scholarships, and I applied to a few, and there was one that I put my heart and soul into, and they called me back. And this one scholarship wanted to interview me too. And they really wanted to get to know me because they were giving me a lot of money to go to school. And this full ride scholarship was specifically for the University of Utah. And when I went there to interview, it was scary. I don't know if any of you have had to interview yet for any jobs, but it was basically the same thing where they ask you a bunch of questions of why you deserve this scholarship. And I made sure to tell them that I did. I did deserve it because I've worked this hard and because of the person that I am. And because I also told them that nobody else would have paid for my university. I had to figure it out. And so when I got the call that I got that scholarship, it was life-changing. And I share that with all of you, not to brag and not to say that I did it, all of you can do it, or that everybody can do it. It's me sharing it with all of you to say that if I did it, you can do it. So that was a great experience. And because I know all of you are like, when is he going to be done talking? I'm going to kind of speed it up a little bit. But I got that scholarship. I got accepted to the University of Utah. And so I embarked on my educational journey outside of high school. I lived on campus. So I moved out of my house with my parents, and I lived at the University of Utah. There's something called dorms. So I lived in the dorms in the University of Utah housing, and I experienced that. In college, people aren't, but the teachers specifically aren't really like making you do homework all the time. You get a lot of homework and you're expected to do it, but they are not babysitting you. They are not hovering over you. That is just something that you are expected to do. You paid a ton of money to be here, so you're expected to do it. And that was very different because I feel like from elementary to high school, you're very scheduled. Your parents are the ones that are always telling you to go to school. But when you get to college, you have to tell yourself to go to school. And that's very different. And then in college, you get to declare something called a major. So a major is something that you actually want to concentrate your studies in. I mentioned an entrepreneur earlier, so somebody who starts their own business. An entrepreneur major or an entrepreneurship major, that is something that you can do. If you wanted to be a dancer, that is something that you can do. If you in college are thinking about being a professional athlete, so you want to go to the NBA the NFL, all that stuff, like they also get drafted in college too. And so there's so many different opportunities. And that's why I'm telling all of you that college really will change your life. And so um, I really found myself there. So I declared a major in business administration. So I talked to you all about me already having that business mindset. And I finished my degree. I did it in 4 years and I had the best time doing it. I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of amazing people. I lived in Spain for a summer and it was paid for, which was really nice. And I did that because I wanted to continue to learn Spanish and to explore and to find myself. And I did all that and I had a lot of fun. And if I could go to college again, because I'm no longer there, I would in a heartbeat. And then I graduated. I did an internship while I was in college for a financial bank called Goldman Sachs. And I realized I did not want to work there. I wanted to do something else. I did it in operations. And I found out that I really wanted to do human resources at businesses because I felt that human resources really spoke to me and who I was and how I wanted to help employees in the future because I had so many people help me throughout my life, my parents, mentors, teachers, professors. And so I wanted to do that. And so today I am a college graduate. I work for a medical device company here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I used to be in Atlanta, not anymore, but I was also there working in human resources for a tech company prior to moving back. But it really changed my life. And I'm so happy with where I'm at today. I really am so incredibly happy and grateful. And so I hope me sharing my story helps all of you think about your own stories. And I hope that all of you get to share them with us, with me specifically, but also with ALPFA, because ALPFA was able to put this together for all of you so we could share stories with you. And so I hope you think about ALPFA as you grow up because they are doing amazing work in the community. And I can't wait to hear the stories that you all share with us. So I hope all of you have a great day and enjoy the videos that you have to watch. All right, bye.